This is Gary Thielman from the University of Mississippi School of Pharmacy, and I'm going to show you how to use this group readiness assessment test tool that I've put online. But go to sign in, put in either your username or more likely your email, and the password you received or the one you signed up for, and hit sign in. Now what will happen is two new menu options will come up: new test and list tests. So if you click on new test, the first thing it's going to do, because you haven't done it before, is agree to our terms of service. And basically this is just templated language that says that if we do anything that causes problems, you're not going to sue us. So let me go to one of my quizzes. This is one of my preventive medicine class. So let's go ahead. This is my Week 1 of Preventive Medicine Week 1 test. I have 10 questions, although you can change that if you want. There are 21 teams in my class, and I am going to be administering this on the 23rd of February. And I'm just going to put in that this is a demo test for training. And I hit create. Now what will happen is it will now generate 10 boxes down below for 10 different questions. And so what we will see here is question 1, number of choices, correct answer, and then what scores you want to give. So number of choices, all of my quizzes had 6 options, but you can certainly choose anywhere from 2 to 6. Correct answer on the first one was C. So let's jump back over and change this to C. And these are how many points get awarded depending on how many times it takes for the team to find the correct answer. If they get it on the very first guess, I usually just consider that to be 100 points. If they missed it on the first one but they got it on the second, they get 50, and so on. If it took 6 guesses, that means that they missed it every single time. That's a 0. It will automatically fill in some suggested numbers, but you can change this to whatever you want. And you could also put in some optional notes. This is a question about 10 essential public health services. So I'm just going to put in here 10 essential public health services. And the students don't see these notes. These are strictly for you. So what you will do is you will go down and adjust each question to match up with your quiz. You don't necessarily have to choose 6. Let's say that you only had 4. Okay, so now that you've done all 10, go back up, click Update All just to make sure that everything is saved. And now when you go on List Tests, what you will see is a list of the tests that you've created. Here's the Preventive Medicine Week 1 test. If you made some mistakes or you want to check it again, and just to be sure, you can click Edit, and that will take you back to the previous screen that we were just on. You can go through and check against your paper copy again. Let's go back to List Tests. What you would do here is you can download links. And what these are is these are URLs that will lead each team to the web page where they will submit their answers. So let me go click on links, and it is downloading a CSV file. Let me go ahead and open that up and adjust this just a little bit to get it all on the screen. So what it's done is it has created for each of the 21 teams a short URL, a bit.ly link, and when the students type this link into their computers, it will take them to the page where they will submit their answers. So what I generally do is I do a little bit of formatting. First thing I usually do is I increase the font size. There we go, that's a little better. In order to make it harder to confuse capital O's and zeros and ones and lowercase l's, I use a font on Mac called Consolus. And what it does is it makes it a little more obvious what each character is. And I'm also going to adjust the row height. Let's see, row height, and I'm going to change that. Let's make that 1.5 inches. Okay, so the idea is what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out this spreadsheet, and then I'm going to cut them into strips right along here so that I can distribute to the teams a strip of paper with the URL on it. And you can see how it's going to show up on once it's printed out, and I would just cut along here in order to create a strip for each team. Now let me explain how I handle team-based learning logistics in my class. I have an envelope prepared for each team, so 21 teams, 21 envelopes. At the beginning of the session, one student comes and picks up the envelope for each team, and I tell them, do not open the envelope, do not take anything out until they're told to do so. First thing we do is the individual readiness assurance test. So what I will tell them is look in your envelopes, take out the Scantrons and the green sheets. And the green sheets are the questions, Scantrons of course. I actually watermark these quizzes with the student's name and team. It's not very hard, it's actually just a mail merge. I do this to try to reduce the temptation for students to walk out of the room with copies of the quiz. And so the idea is if one is missing when they return them, the one that's missing is probably the one who walked off with it. So 10 multiple choice questions. And I use Scantron. Now I've tried using computer-based testing, I've used ExamSoft, I've tried Blackboard. The problem is I always, every single time, I have a couple of students who end up having computer problems, can't get started, and it just throws off everything. Whereas with Scantron, I can start them at 8 o'clock, I call time at 8:10, and I've never had any problems. We're going to get started in just about 60 seconds. If you all would go ahead and please put away books and close down the lid on your laptops, please. Also, remember what I need on here, what I would prefer is your Blackboard username, which is the first part of your email address before the @go. Most people are doing that, but for those of you who need a reminder, not last name, not full name, the first part of your email address. Okay, you can go ahead and take out the green pages. Please no speaking from this point on. We start the quiz. You have 10 minutes. What I then say to them is put paperclip back on the Scantron and the individual green sheets and put them back into the envelope. There should be no green sheets and no Scantrons evident anywhere in the room. And then they are to take out the blue sheet, and I tell them to look for a salmon-colored strip of paper. Now, the blue sheet is the same quiz that they just took. This is just the team version. Inside your envelope is a strip of paper. It's kind of a yellowish thing with a URL on it. That's the one that you're going to use. So if you would please go ahead and deal with the green sheets, with Scantrons, put those back in. So I'm looking around, I don't see any Scantrons, I don't see any green sheets. All I should see are the blue sheets with the team quiz and the salmon-colored strip. What this is this is the URL that takes them to the Group Readiness Assurance Test website. So the idea is they type in the address on their computer. They should only have one laptop out per team. That takes them to the electronic scorecard. So what that will bring up on their screen is a sort of electronic scratch-off card, which has an icon for each one of the possible answers. And the idea is that using the printed questions on the piece of paper that the students have, they come up with a consensus answer. So in this case, let's say that they decide that the answer they want to choose is A. So they click on A, and they find that is not the correct answer. So unlike a typical multiple choice question, instead of just moving on, they keep checking until they find the actual correct answer. Let's say that the next one they try is C. And yes, that actually was the answer. The way I would score this is since they didn't get it on the first guess, I would probably give them 50 out of 100 points. But of course, people could set up any scoring system that they particularly like. So that was question 1. Let's go on to question 2. Question 2 only had 4 possible answers. And let's see, the group takes as a consensus answer B. Yep, got it on the first one. So in that case, they would get 100 points out of 100 points. Of course, you can set up any scale you like. And question 3 also had 4 choices. So let's say they try C, nothing there. A, still not getting it. B, ooh, well, obviously the only one left is D, so there's really no knowledge demonstrated here. This team wouldn't get any points. They would get 0 points for not being able to pick it at all. So the idea is they go through the various questions. They can either use the arrow to move back and forth, or they can use their mouse to drag the slider across. The dragging is actually more useful if you're doing this on a tablet or a cell phone. Now if I click on List Tests and I find the exam that I'm giving, I can also go down here and I've got a couple of links that are helpful during the class itself. The first one is Progress, which shows me how close the various teams are to getting done with the quiz. All right, I had a question during the quiz, and I think it's a pretty good question. Having this information up on the screen, how many people feel like this would make people uncomfortable? That they don't want to see where their group is in relation to others, they might feel pressured or like they need to hurry up or anything. And how many people feel like it's better not to have this up here? How many people really don't care? Okay, I think that's a consensus. I'll go with that. The next button that's useful during class is Guesses. And what Guesses tells me is how many groups chose which choice as their very first guess on the quiz. And this gives me an idea as to whether or not I need to spend a little more time with the class talking about that particular question, or if it looks like everybody got it on the first guess and we can safely move on. But it looks like everybody chose B, 1994. That is absolutely correct. Does anybody recall who it was who led the effort to reform the healthcare system in 1994? And shout it out. Hillary Clinton. Yes, she did. Let's see, number 8, welfare. How much of the federal budget? Okay, this one, the book said 3%. Most people, if you go on the street, figure it's about 17 to 20%. So I'm not terribly surprised to see some other answers. At the end, I tell them, put everything back in the envelope, and then I've got some other material and other colored paper that has to do with the team assignment. So it looks like people did real well. If you would, go ahead and put the blue sheets back into the envelope, and we'll move on to the next activity. At the end, collect all the envelopes, take them upstairs, and then I take out everything and process it. So now I'm back up in my office after the session, and I'm going to go and I'm going to click List Tests. And let's see, here's the one I just did, week 7, and let's take a look at the scores. Takes a moment for those to compile. And let's see, so preventive medicine week 7, February 15th. So 95, 100, 100, 95, there's an 85.6. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click here. And what I see is questions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they got okay. Question 7 they struggled with. So they answered D at 8:13, E at 8:14. A few seconds later they tried A, still didn't get it, F, and at this point they're just guessing. Finally got the answer B, but at that point it took so many guesses I only gave them 6 out of 100 points. Question 8, looks like they got it on the second one, and the others 2 they got right away. So a little bit disappointed there, but for the most part it looks like everyone did pretty well. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to download a CSV file. And so I open up the CSV file in Excel. This is just an internal identification string. I can probably safely delete that. What that leaves me is the team number and the score that they got that we just looked over. And I don't necessarily have to do this, but it makes it a little easier for me to import these scores into Blackboard by using it in CSV format.